In the Philippines, Chi volunteers have bought 5,000 kilograms of fresh vegetables to be distributed to jeepney drivers. Take a look at the Guandu Recycling Station, which is an interim recycling station located next to the Tzu Chi Humanitarian Center. Selamat datang ke DaAi Headlines, saya Simon Gan. Terima kasih menyertai sesi berita kita. In the Philippines, due to the pandemic, vegetable supply is much greater than demand. To help farmers, volunteers have bought 5,000 kilograms of fresh vegetables to be distributed to the jeepney drivers. Here's more.
There are abundant vegetables in the vegetable garden, but the farmers have their worries.
Price in the market is so low, they leave the produce drying out in the sun or hindi na nila nabebenta, so they lose a lot of money.
Due to the pandemic, Philippine restaurants have not opened. The vegetable supply is greater than its demand, and the market prices for vegetables have been dropping. The Philippine chapter has bought 5,000 kilograms of vegetables and delivered them to jeepney drivers.
Buying these vegetables and at the same time distributing it to our jeepney drivers so that it is one way of promoting vegetarianism.
Sa panahon po ng pandemic, kailangan po talaga
Facing the pandemic, we should embrace vegetarianism. It is best to eat vegetarian food every day.
Unang-una, doon sa mga
If we continue to eat meat, we might face other diseases.
Doon tayo makakuha ng mga sakit.
The drivers have also brought their filled coin banks to donate to Tzu Chi and pass the love forward. Despite the pandemic, volunteers continue to provide love and care to the needy.
An Indonesian couple have been eager to give birth to a baby. They waited for 16 years and finally had a child who turned out to have Down syndrome. The family had financial difficulties, so Tzu Chi volunteers reached out to help them. Here's more.
After 16 years of marriage, they waited for a long time and finally ushered in the crystallization of their love. But unfortunately, the child was born with an illness.
Because at that time, my wife suffered from preeclampsia, so she was only pregnant for 7 months. And when the baby was born, the baby only weighed 1.3 kilograms. It was discovered after the examination that it had Down syndrome.
Their 6-year-old daughter, Jenny, cannot walk, cannot hear, and is mute. The husband and wife work odd jobs to earn a living. They're very poor, and there is little money to pay for their medical expenses.
My wife complained to her friend about the difficulties we encountered. Later, her friend suggested us to apply for assistance from Tzu Chi. Later, we got the subsidy.
With milk powder provided every month and a living allowance, the family can finally breathe a sigh of relief.
We are very grateful for Tzu Chi's assistance. If we don't have your help, we can't buy this nutritious infant formula.
We will continue to pray for them. We hope this child can grow up healthily and become the hope of the family.
Tesco Malaysia have been partnering with a charity organization called Kechara Soup Kitchen to bring leftover bread and veggies each day to help disadvantaged families. To date, this program has saved 2,200 tons of food waste and helped up over 400 families.
Each day, Malaysians produce about 15,000 tons of food waste, and among that amount, 3,000 tons of it is still edible food, which is enough to feed about 220,000 people. To put resources to good use, Tesco Malaysia, the supermarket chain, has been donating their leftovers each day since 2016. They take whatever that doesn't sell for the day and donate it to disadvantaged families and charity organizations.
We want to encourage not wasting food, so we donate the leftover food each day to organizations. In total, we've donated 465 tons of food. We've been working with Kachara Soup Kitchen since 2016.
Kachara Soup Kitchen was established in 2008 and gives food to those in need. The volunteers from Kachara would pick up the food from Tesco each day to distribute it to pre-registered families. To date, the distribution has saved 2,200 tons of food from going to waste and helped feed about 400 families.
Sayur saja pun dekat RM10. Satu minggu kita kira sweet sayur tak payah beli.
I always get vegetables and bread from them, and sometimes others. I'm so honored and thankful that I receive help, although the amount isn't much, but each time lasts about 3 days.
We have to teach people that there's a lot of resources out there being wasted these days, and yet it is not channeled properly to those who are in need. We believe everybody needs food, and we don't want to see anyone suffering from hunger simply because they ran out of food.
Putting food on the kitchen table isn't easy for some people, thus it's good for consumers like us to keep that in mind, to see the value in the food and reduce our kitchen waste. In the end, it helps to curb greenhouse gas emissions to help save the planet for our next generation.
Currently in Malaysia, there is a food resource platform that brings food to the people for a near 70% discount, as to encourage restaurants not to contribute to food loss and waste while bringing the resources to those in need. Here's more.
According to reports from the United Nations, COVID-19 has impacted food production globally and has severely delayed the food supply chain. A few of the major exporters of food, such as Vietnam, India, and Russia, have stopped exporting food in order to save them for their own domestic supplies. The UN also estimates that this year there will be an increase of 1.3 billion hungry people, as the world is facing a food supply emergency unseen in 50 years. In Malaysia, much of the farm products like rice, meats, and vegetables are imported in order to meet the demands of the domestic market.
We import a lot of critical food from other countries. Our food import bill has reached 50 billion every year. And that's huge for a country. We have land which is fertile, but we are not growing our own food because a lot of our focus is more on cash crops. So now that COVID-19 has happened, we find it a problem to actually bring in food that we're supposed to. The cost of cross-border trade has increased because of the SOPs. It might shoot the prices very high up.
Executive Director Faisal Iran Sam of the International Strategy Institute says, the world is not at the critical stage where there is a shortage of food, but due to COVID-19, those living at or below the poverty line have a more difficult time getting the food.
Actually, the whole world, we don't lack of food. We have a lot of food. It's just that the food does not go to where it's supposed to go, to the poor people, the unfortunate people. We don't have a functional, efficient way of distributing excess food because we produce and produce and produce and produce, but we just produce for nothing, you know. At the end of the day, it goes into the tong sampah. And this is the classic feature of capitalism which we need to change.
Since 2017, Green Hero, a platform to channel and distribute excess food to those who need it, was born.
We saw a waiter brought out a black garbage bag. It smelled something like strawberries. I was curious to it, so I opened the bag. What I saw was all the good pastries in that bag. And I was so angry and frustrated at the same time. And from there, we created a social enterprise business model.
Currently, there are over 80 restaurants participating on Green Hero to help sell the excess food from the day. The prices are marked 30% off, with many people benefiting from such discounts, as well as reducing food wastage. In just 3 years, Green Hero's daily sales percentage went from averaging 10% to now 55%.
We want to reduce food waste, not just in Penang, but for Malaysia and also for ASEAN.
The Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations has provided 9 tips on how people can actively prevent food loss and waste. The food crisis is slowly impacting our lives, but as long as we are actively reducing and preventing food loss, then it is believed the stomachs of those hungry people in the world will be warmed.
In Taipei, Guandu Recycling Station, which is next to the Tzu Chi Humanitarian Center, is an interim recycling station. Since the original Tzu Chi Guandu grounds is being rebuilt, recycling volunteers have set out a temporary location in 2017. Here's more.
As they were disassembling the old place, we thought that recycling cannot stop. Everyone worked with one heart to look for a new location. Later, we found this lovely place.
The place is between a flood wall and a flood retention pond. Its long haul is less than 100 meters. Despite that, the volunteers thought it was ideal. They removed the miscellaneous items, scrubbed the mold from the wooden path, and paved interlocking bricks.
As we paved the interlocking bricks, we moved the original recycling station up here. We had to build a path in the house roof.
Our Guandu Recycling Station is closest to DaAi TV. Every day as we look up, we can see our DaAi TV. Everyone feels fortunate to be able to do recycling here.
The volunteers say that they are blessed because they still have chairs, electric fans, lights, and TV. These are all second-hand items.
Although the place is small, we're familiar with everyone. Naturally, we feel very close to each other.
I take the bus to come here. I take the bus to Beito Station, transfer to the MRT, and then walk here.
At the recycling station, there are people who measure volunteers' blood pressure and lead exercises. Terima members also come to check on everyone's health.
Recycling volunteers work so hard that they forget about their health conditions. Doctors come and tell us to do exercises to relieve our pressure. We upload the blood pressure figures. This way their families will immediately know about their blood pressure.
Since the temporary recycling station was put to use, about 35 recycling volunteers dedicate their efforts every day, just like DaAi TV.
I do not come very often, so I'm not very familiar with sorting recyclables. I just sort the recyclables into general categories. The Tzu Chi sisters who come often will sort them into detailed categories.
Since recycling trucks cannot enter the recycling station, volunteers must pull and carry the recyclables. Unless there is a typhoon, they do not stop their work.
Things are the same. We work hard in spite of rain or wind. We need to accomplish the work. We should finish a day's work by the end of the day. Or else, if we accumulate the recyclables, we will have a hard time tomorrow.
While Recycling Mission supports DaAi TV, Guandu Recycling Education Station also welcomes visitors. From 2004 until 2016, the recycling station has been in charge of recycling in Beito.
In a year, about 200 to 300 groups, even more than 300 groups, come and visit our Guandu Recycling Station. So we are promoting environmental protection education.
The recycling education station is not closed, but has become smaller in scale. It is waiting for the completion of the construction of the Jingsi Hall. Guandu is our home. Welcome home.
Not every leopard cat that is successfully rescued can be released in the wild. Those who are unable to do so may eventually be placed in a zoo or a breeding program. It is hoped that education can teach more people about the lives of leopard cats and help protect their valuable habitats.
The picture I painted today is Jibao, along with his brother Jili. They're the first pair of artificially bred leopard cats in Taiwan. Jibao is actually quite a sad story.
Brother Jili was 9 months old when he was released, but disappeared with no contact 23 days later for unknown reason. The COA's Endemic Species Research Institute originally worried about whether Jibao should be released in the wild. Later, when Jibao was released 17 days, was found lame and wounded. It came back to this institute in Nantou. Researchers found that Jibao's hip was injured. It was likely that it was bitten by another leopard cat.
Maybe the reason is that they were born in a captive environment. Although we let them grow up with their mothers, they probably still don't know the social behavior of a leopard cat in the wild.
The wild release was not successful, so later, because it was in the wild for a period of time, it was injured by a trap, so it lost one of its paws and was brought back to the zoo.
A leopard cat can traverse several hills in one night, and every such cat, when it returns to the zoo, must survive adaptation to this new environment.
We try not to interfere with it and then let it adapt slowly. During this time, we'll observe its nighttime behavior through our surveillance cameras. We found that it became more active recently, so we are more at ease.
Starting from May 2014, Jibao served as a leopard cat conservation ambassador at the Taipei Zoo until January 2018. The Endemic Species Institute worried that Jibao was 5 years old at the time and had to bear the heavy responsibility of reproducing offspring, so was sent back to our original wilderness home, Nantou.
Not long after returning to Nantou, Jibao died. It seemed that he was infected with the virus.
I still feel sad, even though it came from happily. We even think that it went back to nature, and this was an important mission. But after its death, we choose to let it serve another function as a specimen of a species.
Family history of Jibao reveals the precarious state of leopard cats in Taiwan. When Jili and Jibao were artificially mated, contact with their father had been lost and their mother had been caught in a trap. Still, the plan was to have their subsequent release into the wild, but Jili disappeared and Jibao died when he was 5 years old. And their father later died in the Endemic Species Institute, and their mother died at the institute, and an auntie, Xiaomu, was sent to Taipei Zoo 2 years ago because of old age.
I'm checking the surrounding environment. First of all, when we come in, we'll check if there are any problems with the facilities. Things might decay if they get older. We see which part may separate, giving the animals the chance to escape if they find an opening. And then we also check to see if there's any problem with the top net.
When a farmer in Puli was digging ginger 13 years ago, he discovered a little leopard cat that was only 6 weeks old. Because she couldn't go back to the wilderness, she can only live here.
The leopard cats in the Taipei Zoo are referred from the Endemic Species Institute. At present, there are 6 of them. They're probably here because of the condition of their limbs, which may be caught by a trap. This can greatly impact its survival or reproduction in the wild. Because they're critically endangered species, they must be sent for care at the zoo.
The leopard cats who come to the zoo have 2 missions, becoming a display for their species and reproduction. In other words, the leopard cats in the Endemic Species Institute especially target young individuals who can return to the wild. Those who cannot be put in the wild or those who are older will come to the zoo.
Many of our animals in the Formosan animal areas are rescued and sheltered animals. So we hope that when tourists come, they can read more about their stories to understand the problems faced by these species in the wild.
If their habitat does not disappear, leopard cats won't have to disappear to remote mountains or zoos. This means that the beautiful leopard cats can live comfortable day and night, relying upon the compassion of mankind to allow it to survive.
In our following report, we'll take you to the platform of NCHC and how they provide resources to students studying film and animations. Let's take a look at their creations.
The perfumer misses his daughter who passed away as he uses his profession to bring back his daughter. The lively animated film is a creation from the LTU DCD graduate students.
因为我们有一些人都是在 Because some of us studied outside away from our hometown, so we thought we could produce a theme such as family. The protagonist uses his profession to resurrect his daughter, but he didn't really bring his daughter back to life. It's actually a physiological effect, since his daughter is alive in his heart, not in reality.
The animated film The Perfumer, From Brainstorming to Completion, took 2 years for guidance counselor Liao Weizhi and his students. The tasks include storyboarding, camera blocking, and character design. Every task is a profession.
Character design is like temporary actors. It requires people with artistic talents. And in the process, we will put the characters and scenes into a 3D software. Then we go through a process called modeling. Modeling uses the software to make a 3D model. And then you may use the points and axes to create a suitable model. Just these steps mentioned takes a year or two, and the person may be required to know human anatomy, 3D concepts, and the study of perspectives.
When the characters walk, we pay great detail to where the hand or leg is placed. It's the time points in which the body parts are located, which presents a form. Normally, when you walk, you won't pay attention, but when you actually have to model the character walking, you have to know which time point to balance the character, or else the performance will be weird. Sometimes we go through filming in real life, setting up a camera to film myself doing an action, and then using that as a reference.
Actually, the rim light is a type of black light. With this, we can present the character as more three-dimensional.
But 3D animation requires an enormous amount of calculations. For example, the light rays reflecting within a space or onto surfaces. A high-end CPU is required for a speedy calculation. NHCH provided a platform combining computers with multi-core processors, creating a supercomputer. The team now utilizes the supercomputer in the render farm, creating detailed and high-quality animations.
The higher the resolution goes, the more time it takes to render. But after having these servers, supercomputers are doing the calculations for us, so our quality can be raised to a certain level.
The service had reduced a lot of time for us. Normally it would take a week for us. Like before, we had to go to campus on weekends to request for rendering. A whole day is gone doing so, and actually we could save the time for more tasks. For example, the animation performances or adding in more lighting and effects.
We're now at the National Center for High Performance Computing's render farm. It uses many supercomputers to provide many clients needing multimedia computation at the same time.
The establishment of the render farm is actually because of the movie Avatar. CC Kuo, the NCHC art technology director, after seeing the movie effects of Avatar, had an idea. She decided to use all the NCHC supercomputers in order to assist the current Taiwanese film industry.
Avatar has done a great job at dealing with lights and shades. It looks sterile.
The film Gone with the World and The Assassin both utilizes the render farm. Ever since the NCHC provided SaaS service in 2011, it went on to help over 200 Taiwanese films and artistic creations.
These computers are reminiscent of the past. Previously, it has been used for biomedical calculations and weather simulations. It also has done multimedia work, and through its use, it has helped more users to express Taiwan stories.
In China, Tzu Chi Kindergarten in Liancheng have been receiving much praise for its humanitarian education, with many parents eager to send their children to study in this kindergarten. We'll leave with these images. Thank you and goodbye.